Buongiorno.
Good afternoon, everybody. Today we're having this meeting entitled Cooperation and Business with a Human Face. And if you have been here before, you know that we always want to show the positive aspects in our reality, positive aspects which are connected to a different human position and connected to the world of businesses. So today here with us, there are three important businessmen of three different businesses. We have Brunello Cucinelli. He's one of the most important brands in our textile industry in Italy and in the world. We have Mauro Lusetti. He's the president of LegaCoop, which is a real friend for the meeting because of cultural closing things. And Frédéric Thil, he's the CEO of Ferrero SPA, and we're very close to these businesses. Three important brands, and they are represented by their CEOs and presidents. So we're going to have a dialogue in order to understand which is the connection between the origin of businesses and the businesses itself. I will ask them questions, they will answer those questions in 2 rounds. So, Mr. Brunello, why did you decide to do business? Why are you a businessman? And what are the features of the entrepreneur? And in which way being an entrepreneur helps you participating in the creation of the common life? Thank you. First of all, I need to say thank you for inviting me because this is a very special meeting. I'm very happy to be here. And I was saying before that it seems really, really interesting to me because we come here in order to seize something very special. And it's a really good thing, a really interesting thing. Thank you. Well, I think that maybe we've been living 30 years of crisis, but right now we're in a very special moment. It's like if we're living a rebirth, a spiritual, economic, religious, and ethic rebirth. And I would like to talk to you about these. I don't want to talk to you about the past, and I don't want to talk to you about businesses either. And as far as for the economy, I just want to be brief. I think that this is a new moment. We set out again the new map of the job sector, and in this new map, in this new context, Italy has a very important role as for manufacturing sector of high quality, and of course we need human beings in order to produce good manufacturing products. And we're living a very important moment. Obviously, the euro is weak right now. There is the oil crisis. And Mr. Mario Draghi, with his staff, decided to inject a lot of money in the market. And we will use this money in order to finance even smaller businesses. Moreover, I think that the government, the Italian government, carried out some very important reforms, and most important, the Italian government has understood how important it is to be quick. However, today I want to talk to you about how important are human beings. I do believe that we're living a rebirth, and this moral, civil, and spiritual rebirth, and it is due to our cherished Pope Francis. He's a genius for human relationships, and I also think that he he really loves nature and landscapes, and he reminds us of being guardians of the creation, guardians of the world. He reminds us of the the importance of every single human being. He reminds us of poverty. So it means that a different moment has started for us in Italy. After 30 years, during which the big ideals didn't have an important role, as Heraclitus used to say. Now the rebirth has come, and we want to invest in the big ideals such as family, friendship, spirituality, or religion. Well, this is a very special moment for this, and we are investing again in humanity, in human beings, and in people. When I was a guy, even though I didn't attend university, I was really impressed by a sentence by Kant, a very special sentence. He says, I feel emotion by two things, the sky over me and the moral law inside me. When I read this, I decided that I would do business by respecting human dignity. Do you agree with me on this? That if there is a human dignity, then there is responsibility as well. Responsibility and dignity are interconnected. Jean-Jacques Rousseau says men are creative when everything around them are embedded in a special atmosphere, and we need to recover that special atmosphere that generates dignity. Look, I think that we understood that uh, we cannot overcome humanity with science and research. We need to do all of these, but also need to use poetry. We also need to use romantic feelings. We need to join, and I don't know who chose the title of the meeting, which talks about our heart, but it was genius because we need to think that we need to use our heart together with our mind. We need to reconcile the two aspects because every idea that starts with our minds and hearts will be a good idea. I think that this century will be special because Enlightenment and Romanticism will be joined together. And Rousseau thought it. He said, we cannot do things only by using techniques. So this is the novelty of this century. But let's talk about the work of human beings. I am convinced that today we are working too much. I love a sentence by Saint Benedict, and he says something very beautiful about the job. He says, every day you need to study, to pray, and to work. And I think that today we're working too much. We need to take a step backward. We need to work less. I loved Benini when he said, if somebody works too much, he won't have his soul anymore. And I really liked that sentence because I tell you the truth, I think that after 5:30 p.m. nobody should work because every human being deserves to have a human soul. I think that we need to be true to ourselves. We are we're experiencing a moralization of humanity, not because we're better than human beings of the past, but we live in a world where everybody knows everything. My father and my brother used to work, they were offended by other people, but they didn't know things. And today everybody knows everything. So here is the novelty. Young people, thanks to our great Pope, young people have understood the value of the decline of consumerism. I am convinced that Italians are the first population that really understood that the decline of consumerism actually is good for us, is good for teaching us how to use things. Epicurus said that human beings need to look for happiness and must use everything that he gets from the land, but he doesn't have to consume it because we cannot consume things and we cannot even consume human beings. So that's the biggest danger of nowadays. Here there are many young people, and I think that you are the future guardians of our humanity, of this beautiful humanity. I do believe in a good humanity, and young people mustn't be afraid to be courageous, to be happy, and to go back and work for the respect and dignity of human beings. And I like this second sentence by Kant when he says, do things by considering humanity not only as a simple tool, but as a noble medium, as a noble tool. So I want to convey you this vision of the world, which is really special to me. Thank you for now.
Allora, con Mauro
So I would like to ask Mauro Lusetti to talk about the cooperation issue. Why are you working in this field? What is this cooperation model? And what do you bring as your experience? What do you bring to this cooperative model? And right now, many people are do not believe anymore in cooperation, in the cooperative model, which has always been a big and important resource for our country. So I would like you to answer to these criticisms. Well, as far as I'm concerned, when I am posed questions like that, I need to think about my life, and I've always been a cooperator because I've started working in a cooperative when I was 19, and right now I'm 60, so I've been living in this world for more than 40 years. So it's difficult to describe this word, and I will make an effort to define it and to describe it. I think that I started working in the cooperative movement because I chose it, because I thought that by choosing it, I would contribute to the change of the world. So I felt as if I belonged to a biggest picture and that I could have the strength to change the world. Obviously, many things have changed after those years. I think right now I have a different perspective, and today the cooperative model is one of the few words that allow people to grow from a personal point of view and from a also in the perspective of the social prestiges. I mean, people can realize themselves. Maybe we won't be able to change the world, but we will be able to change the life of many people. I think that the reasons that pushed me to take the choice 40 years ago today are different. Those reasons today are different. There are millions of people that are working in cooperatives in Italy and in the world, and they find this possibility to express themselves. In Italy, especially in the latest times, we found very bad examples of cooperators and of cooperatives that questioned this model. We need to start talking about this self-criticism. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to understand how the cooperative model is working today. So I think that today, living this experience in a cooperative model means using values that are a an intrinsic feature of the cooperative model. I think cooperatives are made up of people who want to answer to the needs of other people in this way, in the cooperative businesses. It's a difficult expression, maybe, but this is the truth. We are men and women who organize themselves and work together in these cooperative enterprise and cooperative models. And we cannot separate these two visions because they are intertwined. And when we tried and separate the two visions, we made mistakes. If I think about the what happened to us over the last 30 years and of our mistakes, many times I become aware that the biggest problem was represented by the homologation to market rules that do not belong to us, that do not represent us. Today, the problem is that there are different business systems in the market, and when the cooperative model mm, doesn't represent his fundamental feature anymore, then it loses. We are aware that we are bringing values, important values, and those values must be stressed because otherwise we wouldn't be able to compete with the private businesses as we should and know how to do. Personally, I think that among these values, one of the most important is the theme of the human being, the importance of human beings. This is a feature of our world, of the cooperative model. It belongs to our DNA, and it's not a marketing feature, but it's an intrinsic feature of our model, and sometimes we forget about that. Maybe in the past, because of the crisis, because of the competition needs, or because of cultural influences, maybe we tried uh, in different ways. We tried to use ways that do not belong to us, and this was a mistake. So right now, if we go back to what we are, we can better answer to the needs of our partners and of the people of our country. I'm firmly convinced of this because if I think about our history, the biggest problem behind our disastrous periods was represented by the homologation to the market needs. There are some things that I want to stress about the importance of people. This meeting is entitled Business with a Human Face. I think that a business with a human face is not a business that gives spare time to its employees. A business with a human face is a business which deals with people in terms of their needs, of their training, of the professional growth and personal growth. It's a business that deals with the needs of the people in this sense. So I believe that the effort that we have to make, especially for cooperatives who deal with the relationship with territory and people, I think the effort is represented by this importance given to people. So a business with a human face, it's such a general sentence that we wouldn't be able to understand what it means. We need to stress it out that a business with a human face is a business who cares about people. I think that one of the things that we of which we always have to be aware is the following. During the last few weeks, we've been talking about the employment and the jobless people, and we've been talking about how many years we will need in order to um, get back as we were before. Well, I think that actually we need to set a different objective. We need to decide to go towards a different path compared to the one that we had in the past, because the past was full of mistakes, and right now we must be able to identify a new path, and economy and society must be committed to realize and to build something different. So we need to change direction. Otherwise, in a few years, we will have to face a new crisis, a different crisis. So I think we need to look at different paradigms, the ones that give importance to people, that are interested in creating new job places. Of course, the problem today is not that we're working less. The problem is that we need to find job for millions of people, a good job, a respectful job, and so that people can express themselves as men and women. I think this is a context in which cooperation can give a great contribution by using all of its potentials. Sorry. The first cooperative model was born 170 years ago in England. There were many things that happened during all over these years, and cooperation still exists and is still working. So I think that in this historical moment, we can hope that this model will last for 170 years more.
Frédéric Thil, approfittiamo della complementarietà dei ruoli e facciamo...
I will now ask a few questions to Mr. Frédéric Thil about the company Ferrero and about his role in Ferrero. What are the most important characteristics a manager must have? Is the first question. Then I would like to ask you to tell us something about your experience in Ferrero, which is a family-owned group. You started many years ago in Ferrero, and now you have reached a top position as a manager. Were you expecting this? The third question is, what importance is given by Ferrero to people and to the human capital? And the fourth question is, what does it mean that a company can help building common good? And what is your idea about corporate social responsibility? First of all, good morning. I would like to thank the meeting for having invited me. I'm very happy to be here today. And the speaker is asking the audience to forgive him for his French accent. I would like to start with the characteristics of a manager. I believe it is important to stress that it is important to love our jobs. We all work a lot every day, and so it is important to love our jobs. This is true for employees. I have been working for around 32 people, and I have never seen a person doing a good job who didn't love their job. So I believe there must be some room for enjoying our job. Not all managers have chosen to become managers. So I believe managers have to show that they love their job and convey their love for their job to their employees. I believe a manager has to understand the ideas, the dream of an entrepreneur. We have to be able to set up the right context to understand market, competition, and to be able to suggest the best solution in terms of the profit and loss account. So we have to understand very well what the economic context is and be able to convince other people and to cooperate with other people. Another very important thing is that we have to be able as managers to understand the capabilities and the potential of the company. A manager has to understand the skills of the employees of a company, and all these skills put together are defined as human capital. And I believe human capital is fundamental for a company. So a manager must also bear in mind the connection between the human capital, the value of the human capital, and the very complex situations we have to manage sometimes. We tend to think a lot about money. Of course, we need much money to achieve a certain goal. However, the human capital is also a very important asset. So the manager has to understand the value of the human capital and to be able to promote its development at the service of the company. And the manager has to be not only at the service of the company, but also at the service of the people working in the company. Einstein used to say that time will once become the most important dimension for people. I believe he was right, especially in terms of crisis. So a manager has to be able to manage the short term, the medium term, and the long term situations. I believe in Italy, we tend to focus too much on the problems we have in this moment about unemployment benefits, about the measures we have to take now. And so the manager has to be there to be able to take into consideration what happens in the long term as well. But then how do we assess the work of a manager? I believe a good manager is a person who is able to deal with complex situations. I believe this is the most important feature of a manager. I think it's not so complicated to understand profit and loss account, percentages, numbers. I think what makes a difference is the ability of a manager to handle complex situations. In times of crisis, I believe it is important that our managers are capable of dealing with this very complex economic context. And the manager affects two aspects of the company, namely the value of the human capital and whether the work done by the manager has helped improve the human capital. And of course, the manager also affects the income statement, but after all, this is not so important. I believe the most important goal for a manager has to be that of promoting the development of the human capital. I would like to talk about my experience. I was a professor of mathematics in the past for 5 years, and then I decided to change. I started working for a British corporation. I worked there for 13 years, and I have been working for Ferrero since 2001. If I look back at my university background, about my studies, when I started working for that British corporation, I didn't believe that I would have been able to become a director general, a manager one day. Of course, you had to attend School of Economics to become a director general one day. I knew that very well. And when I started working for Ferrero, after 1 year, I became director general. And after 4 years, I was responsible for the French market. And so I saw a big difference between the companies which are listed on the stock market and those who aren't. There are companies which focus on the background, on the studies a person has made, and others who focus on the human capital. When we compare family-owned industrial groups and companies listed on the stock market, we tend to talk about the profit and loss account. However, the P&L is managed differently. It is true that in a family-owned company, it is better to address complex situations in the short term. For companies listed on the stock market, it is important to take decisions quickly. So what is decided within 3 months in a company listed on the stock market can be decided in 1 year in family-owned companies. However, another difference is the way the human capital is handled in family-owned companies and in the companies listed on the stock market. And I believe that it is important to take the time to help a person develop, and this is possible in family-owned companies. Mr. Ferrero 50 years ago used to say, the company for the people and not the people for the company. And that was very true. Giovanni Ferrero continued along this line of thought. This idea is socially correct. However, it is also convenient for a company because if we invest in people, then we will also have a return. And we truly believe in this. There is basically no turnover in terms of the people who work for the company. Once people start working for Ferrero, they usually stay there. And this is why there is a very specific relationship with those people. There are people who have worked for Ferrero for 45 years, and so we have a huge responsibility towards our employees. Instead of talking of the cost of a structure in our companies, we prefer talking about human capital within our companies, because our employees are our first ambassadors. Another thing as far as corporate social responsibility is concerned, we talk very much about sustainability when we talk about corporate social responsibility. I believe this sustainability is based on an economic, on a social, and on an environmental pillars. There can be no responsibility, no corporate social responsibility without a balanced profit and loss account. We have to make sure that we have a balanced budget in our company. And once we have achieved that, we can focus on social and environmental aspects. So sustainability means both economic, social, and environmental elements. Corporate social responsibility is important for the earth, for our children, for our future, but also from a strategic point of view. When we ask our clients, the consumers, what their expectations for the future are, they tend to tell us that they want to buy products produced by a company which has shown a certain corporate social responsibility. So you see how the social aspect and the business aspect are interconnected. CSR helps us have a higher turnover as well. There is, however, a difference between citizens and consumers. Citizens all agree on the fact that a company has to behave, that there mustn't be unemployed people. However, when a person goes to a shop, they do not take into consideration how the company has behaved. So the role of our companies is showing the message behind a brand and showing that behind a product there's a company who is doing good things. And I believe this makes a difference. We tend to think about the strategy of sustainability. Well, for us in Ferrero, sustainability is a duty, is not a strategy. And then, of course, we will have to choose between corporate social responsibility or brand social responsibility. Do we want our brand or our company to represent us? To Ferrero, responsibility is a duty. And I believe companies can play a very big role in terms of sustainability in the future. We know that states do not have enough money, that there aren't enough public resources to deal with social issues on its own. So I believe companies have a very good opportunity to help solve social issues, not only to help our employees who are consumers and citizens, but for all the people in Italy.
Allora, volevo riprendere con Cucinelli l'aspetto.
I would like to go back to Mr. Cucinelli and I would like to ask him about his cooperators. I believe this is a very important aspect. How do you choose your cooperators, your employees? And how do you make sure that they can help the company grow? Well, this is a very good question. In my life, I've always had a dream. Giving dignity, economic and moral dignity back to work. I believe every person has different abilities, and I believe the company has to understand the skills of the people. How do we do this? We meet people, we want to deal with people directly. Back in 1971, people were not very interested in their education. I haven't attended university, so of course I'm not the best supporter for university studies. I only took one exam at university. People did not have to make an effort at university back then so much. So to me, intuition and being able to understand the most important things in life sometimes can be more important than studying. St. Francis used to say, you have to make sure that people like you. So it is important to work respecting the environment, the dignity of a person. The humanity of work is very important. We have been talking about managers. However, we have to focus on the people who are working and earning 900, 1,000 euros per month. During boring work, however, and very hard work. However, thanks to their efforts, we are able to produce unique products. If I had to ask only one thing to the government, I would ask him to make sure that every person earns at least 1,200, 1,300 thousand euros, sorry, 1,300 euros per month. Because I believe it is very hard to accept to work for 1,000 euros per month. So I believe we have to give back the moral dignity and the economic dignity back to some jobs. Lorenzo il Magnifico cooperated with very important thinkers and philosophers. So I believe it is important to give back work its dignity.
Siccome la cooperazione, da come abbiamo sentito,
I'd like to ask Mr. Lusetti something about cooperation. And you have told us about the ideas behind cooperative work. So how do you try and give back motivation and to defend the values of cooperative work? How do you show this to the young people who work with you? I would like to make a few remarks. In the past, in the cooperative work, there was something which young people will probably not understand, which were called components. So basically, the directors of a cooperative were members of a political party. After the fall of the Berlin Wall, after all ideologies disappeared, have eliminated that old model. And so, in cooperative work, very often, a particular situation has occurred that only a small number of people have taken power and made sure that the cooperative work could develop. We produce 8% of the Italian GDP in the cooperative work, so I believe those people have done a good job. There's a risk, however, unless we regain motivation, making sure that our affiliates, that our partners are the focus of our cooperatives. Then we will have a problem. Democracy within cooperative work is extremely important, and unless we do this, we will miss a historic opportunity. When we talk about the principles of cooperative work, we're talking about very tangible things. We're not talking about theory. We're talking about values which have to do with the life of our cooperatives and with the organization of cooperatives. And so we have to make a change in this respect so that we can achieve the conditions which make us more interesting, especially for young people. I would like to tell you something which happened when I met with Schulz in Modena. Mr. Schulz went to Modena and he was present at a competition for startups. It had been organized by the Compagnia delle Opere in Modena. And the director of Compagnia delle Opere there was very close to the communal liberation movement. His children had set up a foundation to support and promote startups. Mr. Scholz and I were in the jury. in the province of Modena, Reggio Emilia, and Bologna, the cooperative work is very present. And the young people who presented their projects, around 30 projects, were linked with the cooperative work. 8 projects were presented which were very innovative, and the young people who presented their project showed that behind those projects was the idea of cooperating, not just that of making profit. There was a different vision of entrepreneurship, of doing business, of running a business, and the desire to share an experience with other people. However, no one of those young people had chosen the model of the cooperative, although the ideas behind their projects were very close to the ideas behind cooperative work. And at that time, I was very disappointed. But I also understood the potential of the cooperative model. I believe the cooperative model can represent a solution to the desire of cooperating, which is present among people. And I believe we have to make sure that the cooperative model becomes more interesting for young people. We will manage to bridge this gap. And if we will manage to bridge this gap, we will make sure that we promote also economic growth. And those young people, I believe, can continue and share an experience even by following the cooperative model. But this is only possible if we really focus on promoting the cooperative model. And we have to fight standardization to do this. This is our challenge. I'm talking about very tangible things. In the cooperative work, there are very good best practices which have to be presented as good examples. But since people do not hold a role in the cooperative work for many years, they are more responsible because they think about what they are leaving to the people who will come after them. And so, as cooperators, we have to deal with the market, with the world around us. We are running businesses, we are not privates. And so the goal is that of giving something to the next generation of cooperators. There is a very good example of this. That is the intergenerationality of assets, as I would define it. Some people tend to think that cooperatives do not pay taxes. This is not true. We pay a little less taxes. However, what we earn is not given to the members of the cooperatives. It is given to the people who will run the cooperative in the future. And thanks to this, we are able to look at the long term. And according to a long-term vision, we have to deal with the way we manage people, the way we run our business. We are not only looking to make profit. We are not looking at profit at all. If we only focus on profit, we will risk not being able to give the necessary assets for a cooperative to the people who will run it in the future. We have to tackle the challenge of rediscovering our values. And this is a responsibility we have to take because we believe we can do many good things for the new generations, and we can solve problems linked with unemployment and with the desire to grow as people, especially of the young people. Thank you.
Invece voglio chiedere.
I want to ask to Frédéric Thil something of which I'm really impressed, because Ferrero now is all over the world and it faces different people, different cultures. How is it possible to have only one identity and at the same time to have a dialogue with so many different people? Well, that's a very interesting question. I think that this is possible because all over the world there are the same rules. The same rules are shared, they are understood. We're talking about social aspect. Mr. Ferrero opened companies in South Africa, India, and Cameroon, and he did it because he wanted to help people. Obviously, there is a common interest between the social and business aspect. So, as I said before, about the three pillars, which are economy, social, and environment, they are important, the three of them. So the first aspect is to explain, to perfectly explain to everyone the goal. And the goal is achievable because we can do that because we have a longer term vision. We don't have any restrictions, for example, by the stock market. So we have a longer term vision, and this helps the company and the people, the employees as well. So the Ferrero company can go to a new country and to make economic efforts during the first years in order to being set up in that new zone. So we're not afraid of not earning money during the first years if we are in a new country, because we have time. So we are a family-run business. We have a collective memory of the past, and maybe we also have a specific way of conveying our new expectations in the world, and we also have quality products. When you talk about Nutella in Italy, everybody knows it, and that's the same in France, United States, China, all over the world. So there is somehow a magic of our products. So when you talk about Nutella in India, everybody there knows what we're talking about, and they use almost the same words in order to talk about the taste of the product. So it's important, the quality and the taste of the product, which is common to everybody. We have a collective memory and the capability of conveying the objectives and the goals that we have set for us. Since we have more time, I will make a last question. What's your biggest dream? Well, I want to live every day as if it was the last day. And I want to say something for Italy. The world loves us. We are good people, the Italian people. We work a lot and we are really tolerant towards other people. And I'm really sure about that. Thank you. Well, my biggest dream is to have a good mandate as a president of LegaCoop, because I do believe that this historical moment for us, for the cooperative movement, is really difficult, because we have on the one hand many potentials and on the other hand many big problems. So from a professional point of view, I hope that I will be able to help this model, help the cooperatives, because it's a very important model, it's a very important part of the Italian society. So I want to give my contribution and to solve the problems that we have today. And then also I hope I will be able to do the thing that I love the most, which is go biking. Well, my biggest dream is difficult. Before I've been talking about the difference between us and consumers. Well, I really do believe in the future. I hope that we will have a good future, because citizens are intelligent, and I think the most important things are a social responsibility, a job for everybody, etc. So my dream is that in front of me I I will have only people, and not people that I have to judge according to the consumer point of view or the citizen point of view. The only condition is that our economy has to keep on struggle, has to keep on going, because without social plans and without high prices, it will be very difficult to answer to the needs of the present, so, and to the demand of the present. Obviously, I would like that that people will be committed in what they do. So we need to face the crisis and we need to hold tight.
Mr. Cucinelli mentioned Pope Francis at the beginning, and the encyclical comes to mind, which will be presented tomorrow. Pope Francis, as Pope, not as an economist, gives us some food for thought. He tells us there's the possibility to create a different business model. He doesn't mean that the company has to do what the public administration has to do. Of course, the income statement is important for a company. However, I believe the company can be different from what some people would like it to be. And I believe entrepreneurs should not only people who only think about the profit. I believe the egotism of some people cannot help build a common good. We have heard examples from the textile company, from a food company, and from the cooperative world. These are three examples of good practices. However, they still think about people. They are not only thinking about numbers. And so maybe today's event will give us an idea of the fact that we are entering a new era when companies do not only have as their sole goal that of being listed on the stock market and then having to account for what they've done within 3 months, but as Mr. Thil was saying, the companies should take time and focus on their values. And maybe this can be the model of the future companies. And maybe that cooperative approach, of which Mr. Lusetti was saying, can be something which leads us as people and which makes us rethink companies as well. So I believe we share a responsibility, the responsibility of cooperating, of inventing something new, while being aware of our responsibility towards our employees. Of course, we cannot foresee the future, but we need to be optimistic and continue to work for the people. Thank you. If you want to follow the event at 5, you can stay in this room. Thank you.